Welcome to the 1760 sessions, conversations with leaders building systems and frameworks that actually move the needle. I'm Matt Reyes, principal at 1760 Strategic AI, and today's guest is Jenica Norris, founder of Strategic Sound Consulting and creator of the Rebel Method, a neurodiversity-informed, ADHD-informed approach to operations. Jenica, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about the shift from corporate strategy to launching Strategic Sound Consulting.
Yeah, so I a couple of years ago kind of had this little nugget in my brain that I wanted to do something different. At the time, I was still at Microsoft doing multiple roles, including being a chief of staff and being an admin. I was also at the same time getting my MBA in leadership, and so a lot of balls were juggling in the air, so to speak. And one of the things I really noticed is that where I was in Microsoft, I wasn't able to fully express some of the thoughts, values, and kind of the ways that I wanted to approach certain business decisions. And so, let's see, July of last year, I actually decided to step away from that role and kind of take a couple of months to better understand who I wanted to serve, why I wanted to do it, and also create a little bit more flexibility in my life as well. So, back in November of last year, I founded Strategic Sound Consulting. I primarily focus on ADHD optimized systems, primarily in business operations and business management. I recently just added some coaching, and so that's why the Rebel Method was created. Kind of the big mission around the Rebel Method and why I do what I do is because I see a lot of gaps, especially in the small to medium sized businesses, with their founders, with their owners, not having the full resources of going from 0 to 1 or 0 to 5, depending on how fast they want to go. And so I really wanted to focus on those businesses where I felt like I could have the most impact, the most understanding, and also as someone that is on the neurodiversity spectrum, I really wanted to kind of showcase the experiences that I had learned from corporate America and take them and kind of treat them as my own and create my own frameworks that could also go help a lot of different people. And I really have been enjoying this experience simply because I get to help those people. I get to have those conversations. And also at the end of the day, I'm getting direct feedback from different business owners on how I'm shaping and I'm helping them not only grow their business, but also give them flexibility to even take that extra day off where they wouldn't have had that in the beginning. And then also applying some AI structure to that as well, just so then that way they're not only using their own brain, and sometimes that can get a little bit burnt out as well, but also using AI to better structure how they work every day and also how they kind of compose themselves in the same manner.
Yeah, and I can really see how AI can help enforce those frameworks, those ADHD frameworks, keep people, organized and being able to manage multiple things at once that you wouldn't be able to do without AI or needing to increase headcount. And I really find it fascinating about the neurodiversity spectrum that you mentioned. I believe that you yourself have ADHD and are visually impaired. I'm curious, how does that shape how you build systems and frameworks?
Yeah, so I really talk about accessibility first, obviously, as someone that really relies on those different frameworks. I was very fortunate to have a mom as a teacher, and so she kind of knew a lot of the accessibility journey. And so I feel very fortunate that I was able to use as many resources as possible. But I always talk about, hey, if there is another way that people learn. So, for example, in the Rebel Method, I always do a kind of behind the scenes before we even meet and have that first meeting, and they get that first week's content and information so they can already come prepared with any questions they might have and kind of get an understanding of how the flow is going to work. Another example of that is just making sure that a lot of reminders are set up before we have each meeting or each deep dive or each one-on-one. I know that most people tend to find that super useful. I know that there are people that are in the neurodiversity space that do find that annoying, but I think also at the same time too, I also do tailor that experience to each individual person. That is also why a lot of the program is only suited for 6 to 8 people, because I feel if you
Mhm.
do a smaller group, you're not going to get as much feedback. And depending on the kind of people that want to provide you feedback, it might be very well taken or very not well taken. I think the final thing too is every week I always provide them a link to provide me feedback, understanding, And then also with that as well, they have six weekly or six biweekly one-on-one conversations with me. So not only do they get group coaching for an hour each week that is tailored to kind of the three issues that I find neurodivergent entrepreneurs facing, which primarily is executive function, really the motivation and going from 0 to 1 and beyond. And then if they're already kind of at that point where they want to continue to grow and scale, how they can use a lot of the frameworks that we already talked about and discuss in the program, how they can continually use them. I also do have a little bit of a mental performance coaching adjacent mindset in every week that we have as well, where not only do we talk about the frameworks for neurodiversity, but we also talk about a mindset, right? Where a lot of where I find a lot of my clients really struggling is they have the awareness, they have the intelligence, they have the understanding, but it's setting the structure and their mindset for them and really saying, hey, it might take you 10 to 15 takes to create that reel, to create that TikTok, to have this conversation, but we know that we have it in here. So what are the different ways that we can just take a step back, take 5 seconds and fully breathe and visualize how you want to interact with the person, with the context, and really have that be your better state of mind. And sometimes it's just not going to go like that, and that's totally okay. But fully understanding that you can use your brain as a superpower, as leverage, and really taking that intelligence, that understanding, that, full lived experience to that next level is really continuing to network, to have those conversations, because as entrepreneurs, we definitely know that isolation is real, and especially
Mhm.
in a world of digital age, we have to figure out other ways to engage, to network. And so that's why I was super excited to be on your podcast, because I feel like this space is so underrepresented right now. And I know it's only going to get bigger, but
Yeah,
especially as people that do have different disabilities, it's really important to amplify those voices and make sure that we continue to be heard and to be as inclusive as possible.
100%. And I'm glad that I could be a platform for that because I think this is all really, really intriguing. And there's not, you don't hear a lot about this. You don't hear a lot about, you know, uh, the accessibility within entrepreneurs. So, I find this incredibly fascinating and really helpful. What made you develop the Rebel method, and who exactly have you designed it for?
Yeah, so I had done kind of my basic consulting for a while, and some of the feedback that I had gotten was I really would love a either group setting or a one-on-one setting where it's all about coaching. It's all about kind of leading the horse to the water rather than deep diving for them and kind of giving them the next action steps to move forward. And so I said,
Right.
as someone that is very passionate about education and providing the right resources, the right tools, tips, anything like that, I was like, hey, how about we create a program where you get a little bit of both. If you're a little bit more into the coaching of a group format, you're going to get that, but you're also going to get that one-on-one level of understanding and coaching. A lot of the research that I did before really launching it and kind of getting really involved in it was that there's either one or the other, right? And so there wasn't really a hybrid of both. And especially people that are on the spectrum or have neurodiversity, they learn in multiple different ways. And so
Right.
making sure that we have a space for them to not only, if they don't want to speak up in group coaching very often, that's totally fine. They're still getting the information. But when they come and have a conversation with me in their one-on-one, I send them an agenda like 2 days before and say, hey, what are your top three main issues that you're dealing with right now? So that when you come to this conversation, you are prepared, you're ready to go. So you're not wasting your time, because it is valuable for both of us to have these conversations. And so developed it over the summer and really wanted to kind of go into the fall with a refreshed mindset. I know that a lot of people spent a lot of this summer, especially, really enjoying being around family, being outside in wilderness. And so really taking that into account of how can we leverage our brains as superpowers, as, actually a business asset, especially for people that have different brains that work a little bit differently. Because the traditional approaches in consulting are definitely not geared towards people that have neurodivergence. They're definitely geared towards like it's almost like the spray and pray approach where it's like it's going to work for everyone and you have to listen to it because this is the tried and true method versus one of the pillars of my approach is I really want to kind of rebel against the status quo of there is always another way to look at something. There's always another way to have a different conversation about it. We're not going to be mean, we're not going to be aggressive, but also at the same time too, we have learned, especially with social media, we've learned with the internet in general, that things do move at a faster pace than they have ever. And especially with AI too, right? That we have to create a structure and an understanding of if you have a business in this space, you're going to have to move even faster than I think anyone has ever done previously. But then also that provides such a larger market and a much larger audience that can be served. But we also just have to make sure that we're talking to the right people, we're having the right conversations, and we're not providing a very broad approach when maybe something a little bit more specific might be in tune.
Amazing. So who are your first few what type of individuals have been like your first few clients or I guess students within, the Rebel method? I know you just said you recently developed it. What are the type of, I guess students you've had so far, and can you share any client transformation stories just from, some of your first few sessions?
Yeah, so the majority of my clients are going to be people that are either solopreneurs, so they don't have anyone on their team, to maybe about 5 people total.
Okay.
The majority of them are about 100K in revenue yearly, so they're definitely wanting to step it up. The majority of them are in like either the digital product space or they're more influencer adjacent, or they have a business that's more online than in person. Some of the transformations I've already seen is that the majority of them hadn't actually used AI effectively for their business. It was more of like a basic understanding of prompting, which is still better than nothing, but really applying it to having the AI, whether it be Claude, whether it be ChatGPT, really hone in on what they're trying to focus on rather
Hmm.
than, train one AI over and over again. It's, hey, you have these two different experiences. What might work best for you? And then train it and continue to learn from it as well. So that's been one transformation. I think the other one too is just a spike in productivity, right? That a lot of people, they want to take the time to learn about AI and better understand it. But if you have it in a simple framework of this is how I would approach it in a operations perspective, here's how I would approach it in a marketing and a social media perspective. As someone that didn't really use social media as excessively as I do now for my business, it's been a game changer for me because you can talk, day in and day out about your programs, your niche, whatever, but it's sometimes those things that are a little bit off the cuff that are going to get you a little bit more noticed. And so for them, it was opening their door and understanding that you can talk about your content that you've been doing for the past 5 to 10 years, or you can actually go and have a conversation with another creator, another influencer, another business owner in your area, and how can you apply what both of you have learned into a webinar, a workshop, even like we've been doing some speed dating, but it's like for small business owners in this area too, where we spend 5 minutes kind of really talk about our businesses and some of the challenges that everyone faces. And I think that that is super cool because otherwise, a lot of networking events are tailored more for just the, hey, here's my business card, rather than going a little bit deeper and having a better understanding of why we need that connection, why we need that engagement. And especially for people that are neurodivergent, that is even more critical than ever because of that isolation in general. And I think finally, even for my own personal transformation, is really better understanding how I can use AI, especially in my email marketing. I am
Hmm.
not a copywriter. I don't claim to be. And so I know my pillars, I know my messaging, but sometimes it's just better for me to go and put it in to Claude and say, this is what I'm looking for. This is my messaging points. How would you help me structure it? And I think especially that's the word that I love to use for AI. It's about the structure. I'm not going to copy and paste everything that I put into AI, on my
Yeah.
website, on my social media content,
Right.
but it's all about the structure. And once you have that structure and you find what works for you and for your business, you're golden. And obviously, you're going to have to shift it, every quarter, every month, depending on how fast your business does shift and navigate. But I think for me, it's the structure. It's the better understanding of, oh, my brain is thinking in a million different directions. How can I prompt it in such a way that I can actually speak to my clients, actually have that conversation and have more conversions, both in my DMs and in my email as well. And so I find AI to be super useful. I definitely see people using it for the wrong reasons because they want to save time
Hmm.
in not the best way. I think
Right.
that authenticity will always overshine the kind of robotic structure sometimes. And so we just have to be very careful about how we really work on that. But I agree that we can be productive with AI. We can sometimes be more productive without AI. It really depends on the situation. But also having that business awareness is crucial when it comes to that conversation. Because if we're not having that conversation, then we are kind of just letting AI control us in not a bad way, but we're not using it
Hmm.
to its best potential. And we're also not using our brains to the best of their potential either.
Yeah, and I've always thought too, my point of view on AI in the workforce and specifically is AI should never, and at least for successful organizations, should never replace human intelligence. Human intelligence and human IP is always going to be first. Artificial intelligence is there to aid human intelligence, to help human intelligence scale and amplify the work. Which sounds, very, similar to what you're saying. And, it's a good segue because I was actually, I wanted to understand, how you combined AI and your own internal organization. I know you just started your consulting firm last year. How have you, used AI from the beginning, I guess, internally, operationally? I know you mentioned you use Claude to structure emails, structure, email campaigns, etc. Uh, what other applications of AI do you use and appreciate?
Yeah. So one of the ones is similar web. One of the things that I learned that I did not learn through my MBA is how to market effectively. I feel like that is one of the balls that was dropped in my experience because I can talk about how awesome I am. I can talk about how, my lived experience has brought me to this position. But until I actually can understand how some of my competitors are also speaking to my ideal client, let's say, I'm not going to get those clients just simply because yeah, I'm great and I can speak to it at a pretty high level, but that doesn't mean that my story is going to resonate with my ideal client. So you need to be really aware of what your competitors are doing and then even what other people in the general space are doing. I think in the beginning too, a lot of the business operations, like documentation, I had Claude and OpenAI kind of help me make sure that I had the business documentation that I needed. So like a mission statement, a vision statement, just having all of that in one place and creating that like full detailed business plan, it really helped me better understand the flow of how to start a business. Because other than that, people are telling you all of these different things. And I'm like, yeah, I could just start and post till the cows come home. But I really don't want to do that. I want to make sure that the strategy that I
Yeah.
have is beneficial and will be useful for my business. And I think another thing too is the wording for a lot of my lead magnets for my like lower ticket offers. I use AI to make sure that I go and do the research that I need to see if that it would be a viable product. I find that super useful because otherwise I'd be spending, days, if not weeks, doing that on my own, and I just don't have the time right now to do that. I don't think I
Yeah.
ever will.
Yeah.
And I think the final thing that I really like to use it for is like presentation. So in a couple of weeks, I'm actually collaborating with a mental performance coach that coaches equestrians, and we're going to be talking about how to navigate stress, and also talking about kind of executive function and how those intertwine. And so we basically just helped. I think it's called presentation.ai, but also using that to just basically build something super simple that we can go and create and then we can kind of make our own as well versus I
Hmm.
could spend forever in a deck. I love
Right.
being in
Yeah.
PowerPoint, but that's not going to bring any revenue to my
No,
business.
no. It's very
And
time consuming.
And that's what we really want to focus on, right? Is those revenue tasks, those revenue items,
Yeah.
because otherwise, yeah, we could build an email list, we could do all these different things, but that's not what is bringing in revenue right now. And so that's another way that I've done that research is go through all of my data, go through my website, let's see what is actually bringing in revenue, and then let's really focus on that for the next, quarter and see what data that brings me as well.
Excellent. Excellent. How does, neurodiversity inform how you approach efficiency and innovation, with regards to AI and not just AI in general, but just, how you approach the operations standpoint?
Yeah, for me, I kind of have a SOP, so standard of process, where every time I either create a new document or create a new presentation, I make sure that I go through all of my accessibility checks and make sure that it is accessible as possible. Obviously, if I have people that need more accommodations, I'm more than happy to help them. But I really think having that SOP in place and having that process is just super important. I know that some of the clients that I've worked with in the past, they didn't have any for their business. It was all in their head. And I was like, you can use, AI like Scribe that can literally do it as you're going, or you can go through Loom and do it that way as well. But really focusing in on the things that you can kind of automate, whether that be through a video, whether that be through Scribe or, other avenues, or as the time goes on and you're hiring more people, what is going to be the maximum time that you can get back? And it's usually process and procedure, right? Where if something is done and it's completed and we feel like it's working for the business, we're not going to realistically change it. But if we have enough pushback, we can have that conversation. And I don't feel like people are having that enough. I feel like as someone that was in the operations admin space for such a long time, I was always one of the first people to speak up if a process wasn't working. And then already had a couple of different options on how we could kind of progress for next steps. But I think in a business, especially as a solopreneur, still trying to navigate and kind of figure out my grounding,
Yeah.
really having those in place, and those can always change too. I've already changed a couple of my business documents several times, but I think it's just having that baseline, right, where it's not in your head, it's on a piece of paper somewhere, and having the ability to go, talk to Claude and saying, hey, my approach on how I do my marketing positioning has changed. How can you help me build those pillars so that I can create better content for the people that I'm looking for as my ideal client? Has been fascinating. I think another great example is ManyChat. I feel like so many people are on that bandwagon, and I think that that also provides so much value, whether that be, having cold leads turn into warm leads, turn into, an actual conversion, or it's people that just want to learn more about what you do and why you do it. I think knowledge is power. And so wherever we can provide even just a free little nugget of knowledge for our potential clients or people that just want to know more about us, that's how I view business, because otherwise you can have 100 people coming to you and 95 will say yes to your freebie, 5 will say no because they will have other things in their brain, but you still have 95 people that are subscribing.
Yeah.
And it's just that little extra step to make sure that you never know who may come back to you and ask for a project, be a part of your program. And so I think also just being authentic and being yourself and being genuine, while using, these different pillars, these different AIs, is going to be important, I think, until things change, until we make another shift.
Yeah, I totally agree. What parts of your process feel incredibly streamlined, and where does it still demand your full attention?
Yeah, so I actually just hired a marketing assistant about a month ago.
Okay.
And so that was kind of a big lift off of my shoulders, because even though I love to do the social media, I also don't want to spend hours in Canva, and I don't want to
Yeah.
do all of the like, oh, you can do this. I'm not going to follow that. And so he's been working on all of my social media, all of my marketing strategy, all of my marketing kind of pipelines. He's been working on my funnels. And so that's been a big help because he's been doing all of the automating on his end. And so using applications like ClickFunnels, and also I've been using MailChimp for some of my email automations as well. And that has really just helped me tremendously, because I can still go and do my batch content for both email and for social. But then I have someone that literally can take all of my different templates in Canva, and make all of the captions, all of the hashtags relevant and within a specific kind of tone and voice, that has been a total game changer. I feel like the value that I'm getting out of this experience has been tremendous, and I wish I would have done it sooner, because I
Yeah.
did fall into the pitfall of being an early business owner of trying to take on everything at once instead
Yeah.
of actually applying AI, asking support from other business owners or just maybe relying a little bit more on my network. And so that's why I always tell newer business owners is that if you feel stuck, if you're in a rut, always go ask, other business owners, people that you know, because 99% of the time, they're more than willing to help you. And, at the end of the day, we're always going to, tit for tat for kind of experience and knowledge and understanding. And you never know who might give you the royal gem of good advice and good feedback. And I feel like we need more of that in this world and also in the business world as well. There are just going to be times where people are going to need your experience, and vice versa. And so let's really rely on that rather than, going and asking AI for the answer. Let's use AI to structure exactly what we need and then go have that conversation because we're already be more well informed. We're going to have a better conversation. And at the end of the day, we're probably going to get the result or maybe the solution that we're looking for.
I totally agree. I totally agree. If you could offload one repetitive or detail intensive task without losing clarity or quality, what would that be?
Question. I honestly think keeping up on DMs. I do use mini chat for some things, but I do miss like the authenticity, the genuineness, and so I and my marketing assistant still go through and for every new follow, we say, hey. This is what we do. Here's how we can help you. Here's a freebie. And so I feel like having that still be genuine, but having it be a little bit
Yeah.
more automated would be ideal. But for me, because I'm serving less than 10 clients at this time, it's easier for me to do that. But as I continue to grow and scale, I know that that's not going to be something that I'm going to be capable of
Right.
doing. But I definitely feel like having that authentic voice in DMs and emails is something that I think should be automated, but I want to make sure that we do it correctly.
And has social media been your primary, I guess, avenue for new clients, new leads? Has it
Yeah,
primarily been social media outreach or advertising?
yeah,
Um,
I've done a little bit of ads, but I'm actually in the process of refreshing my full website. So I'm hoping to have that done within the next couple of weeks. I had someone do like a bucket deal where it was like a full website redo and a brand shoot. And so I was like, okay, well, might as well do it. So then that way everything is in the same place. So hoping to have that. But yeah, I think 95% of my traffic comes through social media. About three comes from my website, and then two is either through like LinkedIn or word of mouth. So I think
okay.
social media is super important. And obviously, when it's my face, it's doing all of the reels. I want to continue to be genuine and understand who my audience is. But also, I think at a certain point, when when do you need to stop posting every single day? But I think I'm still trying to
Yeah.
get that data and that information. But I think that also just helps me continue to kind of come into how I want to speak to my audience and just better understand how I can market myself too. It's always going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I guess we're almost at 30 minutes, so I have a couple more questions and then we can wrap up. But I'd love to know one move you'd happily repeat and one you'd approach differently from when you started.
I think one move I would repeat is actually just leaving the corporate life. I feel like
Yeah.
for such a long time, I was doubting myself and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And then having conversations with a bunch of people in my family that were also entrepreneurs, they were like, there's never a time to be fully ready, but you're going to be at the end where it's going to be too late for you to have that motivation to actually want to leave. So I feel like that one is one where I would repeat because it was the right time for me. One that I would not repeat is I think listening to too many general business coaches and like consultants um, on like social media. Not saying that everyone is, not entitled and doesn't have their own experiences. But I think for someone like me, that I'm in such a niche experience and niche environment, it does make it a little bit different just because I am navigating it from not only a new consulting perspective, but also coaching as well. So I think just really focusing on my intuition and listening to people that I actually trust in my circle, rather than trying to go down the rabbit hole of Instagram and TikTok,
Yeah.
and just being more informed about what that actually looks like before you kind of reach the, oh my gosh, why am I not doing a million things at once?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. So I guess what's your vision in terms of the next year, 3 years, 5 years on how you see neurodiversity informed systems evolving in business operations?
Yeah, so I think right now one of the stats I read is that there's only about 5% that are like diagnosed in the business space. I think that number is going to go up tremendously over the next couple of years. And so I feel like being on the AI train, but also having the understanding of being genuine and authentic is going to be super crucial. I also think that I will continue to expand my consulting offers a little bit further. I've niched them down fairly well, but I think I want to get a little bit more nitty gritty into it. And then also with the coaching side of things, I really want to create something that is going to be one of its kind. I think it already kind of is, but really getting the word out there of, let's leverage your neurodiversity. Like if you're struggling, there's resources, there's places that you can go to get help with that. And I think continuing to be an advocate for this space. As someone that has had a disability her whole life, it is very crucial to be as vocal and be an advocate for yourself as possible. And I think with how AI is moving, it does tremendously help the disability community because I feel like it does give an extra arm and a leg to those that may or may
Hmm.
not have
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah.
But using it in a respectable and also, I guess, to a certain extent, lawful approach. I know that
Yeah.
there's so many things that are up in the air with that. I know that with GDPR, it's a little bit different. But I really would like to see some policy around how we can, as a country, as a globe, really better understand how we can use AI for good, and really be proponents of, not only human engineering of how to advance, these different sciences, but also to use it, especially in the medical industry, and also we can, save energy, because we do know that with AI there are some caveats to it. And so, how can we use AI to also reduce some of the experiences that we're going through right now?
Amazing. Yeah, I could not agree more. I think AI ethics is, something that's really important, not only from a, business standpoint, but just as, as AI evolves and how we continue to use it. Because it does have the power to really amplify, either really good or really bad. So I think it is important for, governing bodies to really, take this seriously. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that conversation, Jenica. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to plug before we sign off?
So applications are still open for the Rebel Method. It will start on September 15th. I already have a couple of people that are already signed up, ready to go. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Website is strategicsoundconsulting.com, or you can email me at jenica@strategicsoundconsulting.com, or send me a DM over Instagram. But it was a really great conversation. I was really happy to be here.
Awesome. And I'll put all of this in the show notes as well. Well, thank you so much. I'll see you next time on the 1760 sessions.